Well, thank you for those watching this season 2, episode 3 of the Good New World series. This episode 3 is called New Commandments. And I'm just going to share the deck with you, so bear with me. So hopefully you can see this deck, which was created for the Court of Friendship Association with my fellow members number 5, which are Andrea Wen and Linda Zaraya. This is the March 2025 presentation that we compile, and it is entitled New Commandments. And an excerpt that we took from the knowledge book is, do not leave your fate in the hands of others. For those that has a copy of the knowledge book, it's in Fascicle 2. The title is Notice to Our Friendly Brothers and Sisters. The English version of the knowledge book is on page 23. So, season 1, I gave a quick overview of the 10 new commandments. I'm not going to go into the reason why we need 10 new commandments. That's covered in season 1, so go and watch that. For the new upcoming episode, I'll be covering specifically on each new commandment. So this will be related to the first commandment, which I'll read here, which we shall seek justice and righteousness within ourselves before we can judge others. It sounds simplistic, but to be honest with you, it's probably the most hardest commandment to actually, in my personal opinion, abide to. But I believe genuinely that if you can abide by this first commandment, then it lays the foundation for you to be able to compile with all the other commandments. That's how important this first commandment is. So before you can judge others, you first have to judge yourself. And before you can judge yourself, you first have to have a deep self-reflection. And this is actually, in my personal opinion, the hardest thing to do because, it's to judge yourself. We tend to make excuses for ourselves, either make it easy for ourselves or in the extreme, make it difficult for ourselves. We tend to have a tendency of seeing no evil, hearing no evil, and speaking no evil. And we think that therefore no evil exists. But obviously, that is not the case. So the first part of the self-reflection is the internal justice. Examine your own action before judging others. Now, the reality is because of our selfishness, because of our fears, invariably, we don't judge ourselves very fairly. We tend to give ourselves excuses. We tend to, like I said, turn a blind eye to our own indiscretion. So it is extremely hard to accomplish this first deed. I know I've been self-reflecting on myself for many years, and I still, in some respect, comes around in full circle. But it is an important inward reflection that you need to do because, as I said to you, if you cannot judge yourself fairly, then you absolutely will not be able to judge anyone else and conduct yourself in a fair manner externally. Okay, so second one is personal righteousness. So that's cultivate your virtue within yourself first. Again, we all know what those virtues are. That's kindness, empathy, etc. But again, that's always easier said than done if you are to be honest with yourself. But if you can accomplish this, then this foundation, the first, is the foundation of all the other commandments. So justice begins within, true justice cannot exist without self-awareness. So again, that is actually, you think, or we think we can judge ourselves because, quote, we know ourselves. But that's the problem. We know ourselves and we tend to excuse ourselves most of the time. I'm not saying that's in all cases, but based on my own personal experience and based on other people's, quote, inadequacy, which I can pretty well judge, I can say that they're not doing a very good job of judging themselves either, or judging others. So if you do not judging others while ignoring your personal fault, that's obviously going to lead to false judgment. So that's why this commandment is so important. So self-examination leads to fairness towards others. Absolutely. You have to have a balanced perspective on life. Now, obviously, there are biblical wise words that have been stated, which obviously reflect this self-judgment. So in the Bible, it says, let him who without sin cast the first stone. I'm sure you all heard of that saying about Christ when a group of people that wanted to stone, I think it was Mary Magdalene, to death or claim adultery. And Christ basically said, well, he who has no sin cast the first stone. And obviously no one casts a stone because no one is without sin, basically. Okay, so humility is required. Recognize your own imperfection before criticism. And that's something which, as I said to you, is easier said than done. Humility, I would argue that, I sometimes appear to lack that, and I'm not necessarily going to disagree with that. So that's something that I'm aware of my own imperfection, but that's a good start. If you're not aware, just like alcoholism, right? If you're not aware, or you claim you're not alcoholic and you keep on drinking, then you're never going to be able to, quote, cure yourself. The first path to curing yourself is to admit your own faults. So if you are an alcoholic, then you have to admit you're an alcoholic before you can stop drinking, basically. I've seen that in so many cases. That's an obvious statement, but that's the reality of life. So compassionate understanding, see others through the lens of your own humanity. So these are obviously all wise statements, but even though it's wise and it sounds simplistic, it's actually extremely difficult to implement if you are truthful to yourself. So now, obvious statement is love your neighbor. So self-love first. So understanding and accepting yourself fully. And again, discussing my own personal thing, I'm aware that this is also an extremely hard statement. Sometimes I am my own hardest self-critic. Again, I'm not going to go into depth, but that's something. But again, I think that's a journey, a needed journey. But I said to you, you can't whip yourself too hard either. You have to also judge yourself fairly. Yes, we all have fault, and some of us even have some sins within us. But like I said to you, we have to look inward, and we have to be empathy to ourselves as well, and to love ourselves as well. So we do that, and then we'll be able to reflect that onto others as well. So that's part two, extended love. So if you can love yourself, then you can apply that same compassion to those around you. Again, sounds very obvious, but actually very difficult to implement. And then obviously the universal love expands to broader community and humanity, not just humanity, but to our planet, our fellow animals, to everything in life, basically. Okay. So that's why I said about the first commandment being the foundation. Again, the pillar, the pyramid that's built upon the highest value, or the foundation, I should say. Here, step 4 is self-reflection. The foundations are all virtue. All right. So yeah, we're not all perfect, but we must be aware of that imperfection, and we must, whether we address it or we are aware of it so we can suppress it, or better not, I won't use the word suppress, what we're not control, but basically keep it under check, basically, easy one like thou shalt not kill. In fact, I was at a church congregation, font, and I heard this pastor speak such wise words, which opened about being angry at God, being angry at self. And that's something that actually I've been going through my own self. And this word was so eye-opening. He said, don't stop that anger, let it out. All right. God can take it. You know, you think God's going to be upset because you curse at it or whatever. No, God runs the whole universe. So if you have that anger, let it out. Reflect on it. Why? Because if you're suppressing it, it just builds up. So that's why the foundation of the self-reflection is so important. If you have a rotten foundation, if you keep everything just bottled up, then I said to you, it is a foundation built for basically failure. Okay, so that's why it's so important, the self-reflection. Then taking personal accountability. Again, that's part of the reflection, is that, you know, be aware of your imperfection, you know, and take charge of it. And if you need to, like I said to you, express it and bring it out, and then find solutions or ways that you can work around it. Yeah, like I said to you, we can't like cement it over our imperfection, but we can show that imperfection to the world and say, yes, we have it. We're not perfect, but I'm open to basically exposing my own imperfection. Again, that's easier said than done, right? We all want to show a face to the world that we're all perfect, right? And sometimes that just leads to disaster because we're building that supposed perfection on fakeness. Okay. So after you accomplish that, then you can do the inner work. So you reflect on it, you try to challenge yourself to be better at it, you know. And so instead, put makeup onto imperfection. You see how you can use that imperfection and basically heal it. Instead of covering it up, heal that imperfection. Okay. And then if you accomplish all that, and again, it's easier said than done. Okay. Easier said than done. I've tried it and I know just how difficult it is. Then you will build this pyramid, this strong, robust pyramid, and you will then reach the highest virtue, which will be you will complete your self-awareness. So perhaps those say in Buddhism, you will reach your nirvana, your state of nirvana. So, you know, whether we actually able to accomplish that, probably not, but sometimes it's not reaching the journey that's important, but actually the journey itself that is the most important part of our lives. Okay. So all others will align. So as I said to you, this first commandment to me is the most important. If you can build a strong foundation upon this first commandment, then everything else will be built on a solid bedrock. So the first step is the first commandment, self-examination and accountability. And upon that, you would then be able to have this inner alignment. So you align your virtues and action to become consistent. In this case, hopefully consistently good, of course. And then if you accomplish that, then the natural progression is that the other commandment will follow naturally, the other 9 commandments. And we'll cover those in future episodes as well. And then that will allow you to have the spiritual growth, you know, be wiser, be more spiritually self-fulfilling, healing yourself, basically. All right. So that'll complete the ethical development that we all want to, I won't say all, but those that seek wisdom, seek righteousness, seek goodness will ultimately want to accomplish. So again, this is the first commandment, but this is also, in my personal opinion, the most difficult commandment to achieve. So, you know, so again, just going over you, the recognition, seeing your own flaws, okay? And then growing, evolving perspective. But first you have to see your flaws. Then instead of covering or hiding those, you see how you can grow, heal those flaws, okay? Oh no, so sorry, I'm going around anti-clockwise. So recognize the acceptance, embracing your imperfection, correcting those imperfections, you know, and then you will then achieve the growth that you want, which is evolving the perspective on life, on a good perspective on life. So again, is the first commandment, and it may sound like the most simplest commandment, but it's actually the most difficult to accomplish. And this is probably actually one of my most difficult presentations that I've ever done, because a lot of these deep self-reflection I've gone through, and I'm telling you, it is extremely, extremely challenging, but it's part of my growth, part of my spiritual growth. I'm not there yet. I'm definitely not there yet. So I'm journeying there with you all that want to accomplish this enlightened state that we are trying to achieve in life. Okay. So again, I want to thank my fellow members, Andrea and Linda, for this presentation for Core to Friendship Association. And again, as I said to you, hopefully these words will help others be inspired, just like this pastor that I listened to, open my mind to it, and make me reflect that, those anger that I have, yeah, obviously don't take it out on others, which, I try not to, of course, but also don't bottle it up. Let it out. I say, even if you're angry at God, God can handle it. You may not be able to handle it, but God can handle it. But let it out. Let that self-reflection, if you need a shoulder to cry on or whatever, but let it out, okay? You will feel that much better. So thank you again for listening, and much peace and love to you all, and 5-star blessing. So God bless you. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you at the next